Welcome to Purana Talk.
This is it, chapter 49, the one you've been waiting for. This is chapter 49 of the Garuda Purana, second kanda, and it is the final chapter of the second kanda. And it is titled Method of Final Release. Moksha. Garuda said, O ocean of mercy, I have heard that this world of creatures is born out of ignorance. Now I wish to hear the infallible method of final release. O God, O deity of deities, O lover of refugees, in this insignificant world filled with the filth of sorrows, there are creatures staying in many bodies, being born and dying. There is no end to this process. They are always suffering. None of them is happy. O Lord of Moksha, tell me how one is released. The Lord said, Hear, O bird, I shall tell you what you ask about. Simply by hearing simply by hearing the same, you will get release from the world of mortals. There is God, transcendental self, indivisible Shiva, all-knowing, all-doing, Lord of all, pure, without a second, self-luminous, without beginning, without end, unchangeable, the highest of the high, attributeless, and of the nature of existence, consciousness, and bliss. The creatures are his parts and parcels, like sparks of fire being struck by the beginningless knowledge. They separate into different bodies through beginningless actions. They are controlled by virtues and vices in the form of bliss and sorrow. Their bodies have different castes, age, and enjoyment born of their different actions. Then again, in every birth, O bird, they obtain subtle bodies, and after attaining moksha, they acquire indestructible frames. The departed souls enter into insentient objects, worms, birds, animals, men, deities, but after release do not enter into any object or any body at all. Passing through 4 types of bodies in order of their karman and leaving one body after the other 1,000 times, taking birth in human form and acquiring knowledge due to good acts, one obtains release. In the 84 lakhs of bodies of creatures, one does not acquire true knowledge anywhere unless one is born as man. Now lakhs, or lakhs, which this translator misspells every time, is 100,000. So 84,100,000. That's basically 8,400,000. And I think, I don't know, that's a number. I think it's a number of rebirths sometimes attributed to how many times you have to be reborn before you get your final release. 84 lakhs. Here, after thousands of crores of births, and crores is add another 2 zeros to lakhs. So crores are 100,000. Does that make sense? So it's really 10 million. Here, after thousands of crores, thousands of 10 millions, this is just it's a way of talking about really big numbers. A creature obtains human form. It takes a long, long time. It's very difficult to obtain human form. And the message that it tells us over and over again is, if you happen to be human and are listening, God wants you to know that this is your golden opportunity. Don't blow it. But of course, you probably will. And you'll be back working on it again. But the advice remains the same. Here, after 1,000 crore of births, a creature obtains human form only sometime due to the aggregate of virtue. Having obtained a rare human form, he should endeavor for moksha. If he does not endeavor for it, there can be no greater sinner in the world. Born in the most beautiful human form, he incurs the sin of slaying a Brahmin if he neglects his self. Without human body, it is not possible to obtain the supreme goal. One should be, therefore, very cautious to guard wealth in the form of his body and perform good actions. One should always protect self, which is the receptacle of virtue. One should always try to look after the body at any cost. If alive, he may reap the result of his good actions. He may get a village, a field, a house, or wealth, but he may not get human body again. A wise man finds out means to preserve his body. Even a leper does not wish to discard it. Body is useful for dharma, dharma for knowledge, knowledge for meditation, and meditation for immediate release.
What verse is that?
21. That's a nice one with Shiva Bala Yogi in town.
Mm-hmm.
A teacher of the virtue of meditation. Simple meditation, just do it.
No words, just
He teaches silently,
yeah,
just meditates with you and
takes you along.
takes you by the hand. Nice that he's in town.
Mm-hmm.
So, body is useful for dharma, dharma for knowledge, knowledge for meditation, and meditation for immediate release. So, really puts meditation up there.
Mm-hmm.
If a person cannot protect himself from evil, then who else will do the same? If he cannot treat the disease here itself, how shall he cure himself hereafter? At a place where there is no medicine. Old age is like a tigress. Age runs away like water from a leaking pot. The disease kills like an enemy, hence one should practice virtue alone. So far as sorrow does not come, calamities do not approach, organs do not defunct, one should practice virtue. As long as your organs are still functioning. So far as this body remains intact, you should practice virtue. One is a perfect fool who digs a well only when the house is on fire. Time fleets while man is ignorant due to the pressure of work he is engrossed. Okay. People do not realize what is harmful or what is wholesome for them. They are deaf to their own interests. Even after seeing the distressed, the dead, the fallen, and the aggrieved, people do not ever fear having drunk the wine of infatuation. Wealth is evanescent like a dream. Youth is fading like a flower. Age is fickle like a lightning. Knowing this, who can entertain fortitude? Think about it. Okay.
So wealth is like a dream.
Wealth is like a
What's
dream.
the
Wealth
next
is evanescent like a dream. Youth is fading like a flower.
Youth.
Age is fickle like a lightning.
Age is fickle.
Like a lightning. Knowing this, who can entertain fortitude? All right. 30. A life of 100 years is too little. Half of that goes in sleep or idleness. Whatever little is left is wasted due to childhood, disease, old age, and sorrows. Alas, is not that man dead who is idle at a place of action, sleeps at a place of awakening, and is confident at a place of fear? When the soul comes and stays in the body like the foam of water, when the company of the beloved is but temporary, how can a person stay fearless? He who does not know reality calls as useful what is useless, as permanent what is impermanent, and as meaningful what is meaningless. Being infatuated by divine illusion, he falters even seeing, misunderstands even hearing, and misses sense even reading. Even when the crocodiles in the form of death, disease, old age are drowning this world in the ocean of time, he does not realize the truth. He does not observe that time is running out at every moment, just as a pot of unbaked clay is not seen as broken inside water.
Well, I'm not quite sure what that means.
It may be possible to wrap the wind, rend the ether, knot the waves, but it is not possible to maintain perpetuity of the age. Not the waves as KNOT. It may be possible to wrap the wind, rend the ether, not the waves, but it is not possible to maintain perpetuity of the age. You can't stay young forever. Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Since even this wide earth is burnt, even the lofty Meru is shattered, even the deep water of the ocean is dried, what can be said about the insignificant body? I have a son, wife, wealth, and relations. Thus, while the goat of man thinks, the wolf of time takes him away by force. While you're sitting here thinking, I have a son, I have a wife, I have money, I have relations. And even while you're thinking that, the goat, even as the goat thinks this, the wolf takes him away. Okay. 40. This has been done, this is to be done, this other is half done, thus thinking one is taken by Yama. One shall do today what is to be done tomorrow, before noon what is to be done after noon. But whether done or not done, death does not wait, whether a person has completed the task or left it incomplete. Death fire is there, old age has shown him the way, fierce diseases are his accompanying soldiers, the man attacked sees no protection. Split with the needle of greed, soaked in the oil of passions, cooked in the fire of anger and envy, man is eaten up by death. Death takes away even children, young people, old men, and those in the womb. Such is this world. Not to speak of wife, mother, father, son, and other relatives, the soul leaves even his own body and goes to the abode of Yama. This world has sorrow as the root. Whosoever possesses the same is sorrowful. Whosoever leaves it is happy. So leave in a moment this world, which is the source of all sorrows, abode of all calamities, and shelter for all sins. Men can get rid of fetters of iron and wood, but not the fetters in the form of his son and wife. So far as being makes relations dear to heart, the cones of sorrow are being pegged in his heart. So far as a being makes relations dear to heart, the cones of sorrow are being pegged in his heart. So if you have relations in this world, the seeds, your sorrow is already planted in your soul.
Yeah, it's sort of a nasty way of looking at it, but okay.
Oh yes, well, this is the nasty way of looking at it. Eternally, this world is destroyed by the thieves in the form of organs staying in the body who feed on the objects of pleasure and take away all wealth by deception. Just as the fish tempted by flesh does not see the iron cone, so also a creature tempted by enjoyment does not anticipate Yama's torture.
No one expects a Spanish Inquisition.
Yes. 52. The people going on the wrong path do not distinguish between good and evil. These men deserve hell, O bird, who are engaged only in filling up their bellies. Sleep, fear, sex, and food are equal for all creatures. He who possesses knowledge is a man. He who is without knowledge is an animal.
Oh, what verse is that?
53. Sleep, fear, sex, and food are equal for all creatures. It's the same for every being, but humans, if he possesses knowledge, is a man. He who is without knowledge is an animal. Foolish people are troubled by natural call in the morning, by hunger and thirst at midday, and by sex and sleep at night. People love their bodies, wealth, wives, etc. Alas, being infatuated by ignorance, they are born and they die. Therefore, one should always shun company. If it is not possible, one should associate with the great. Association with the good and discrimination are two clear eyes. Whosoever lacks them is a blind man who can go astray from the right path. Men are busy with their own affairs, devolved on them by their ancestral profession or by their particular stage in life. They do not know about true religion. Being deceitful, they perish. Why should many preachers practicing vows, but with their vision blinded by ignorance, laboriously move here and there? Men engaged in ritual practices are satisfied with very little. Being misguided, they conduct sacrifices accompanied by mantras and oblations. Some fools, infatuated by my illusion, wish for moksha by torturing their bodies, by fast, taking cores but once in a day. Taking cores but once.
Courses, maybe.
What's that mean?
Food.
I don't know. Can the ignorant fools get released by torturing their body? Can a serpent die simply by beating the hole wherein it dwells? The impostors who guise themselves with matted hair and deerskins and pretend to be pious move about deceiving people. We got a little preaching going on here.
Yeah, well, especially against sadhus.
Well, and it's, it's sort of has swung the other way in earlier parts of these Puranas too. So it's sort of, you wonder what cult got a hold of this particular, and it's the ending chapter, so it's the opportunity to get something in. We saw in the Bhagavata Purana a lot of apparent manipulation by, some sect or other that seemed to be, Veda thumping, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The impostors who guise themselves with matted hair and deerskins and pretend to be pious move about deceiving people. For him who takes delight in the pleasures of the world and pretends that he knows Brahman, both Karman and Brahman are far distant. Alike at home and in forests, naked and shameless, the donkeys move here and there. Do they become unattached? If men achieve release by anointing mud and ash, will they be released? Jackal, mouse, and deer live in the forest and consume grass, leaves, and water. Are they also ascetics? From their birth to their death, frogs and fish stay in the river as Ganga. Do they become yogins? Doves, shilaharas, and chatikas do not drink water from the earth. Are they vratins? People who fast, who do vrat. And some of these are mythological. And in fact, it's a myth anyway that doves don't drink water, I suppose.
Yeah.
People are content with their routine work, but that does not help them to reach the goal. It is the knowledge of truth and reality that affects release.
So verse 67 is jackal.
Jackal, mouse, and deer, spelled D-E-A-R, live in the forest and consume grass, leaves, and water. Does that make them ascetics?
And then the next animal we get is doves.
No.
Right?
Frogs and fish. Oh. Spend their entire life in rivers like the Ganga. Does that make them yogins?
So fish and what?
Frogs.
Frogs. And then the next set.
Doves, shilaharas, and chatikas, which are all birds of a sort, do not drink water from the earth. Are they vratins? Are they fasters? People who contend with their routine work. But what do you want now?
Oh, that's fine.
That was 69. People are content with their routine work. But that does not help them to reach the goal. It is the knowledge of truth and reality that affects release. Then there's a footnote. Footnote 1. The perceptible world is a creation of Maya, a projection of Brahman. When Brahman withdraws Maya, and then, what does it say? Maya is Maya, equal non-existence or unreal creation. Not quite sure how that comes out of Maya. Okay. When Brahman withdraws Maya into his eternal existence, nothing but Brahman remains. The removal of ignorance is, in fact, the attainment of Brahman on the part of individual soul. 71. O Lord of birds, ignorant fools, fallen in the dark well of 6 darshanas, and bound by the noose of attachment, fail to realize the truth in the form of Para-Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, floating on the surface of the ocean in the form of Veda Shastra, and caught by the waves of 6 nigrahas, The bad logicians suffer miserably. 6 nigrahas. Footnote to flaw in argument, whereby a disputant is put down in argument. 6 or more nigrahas are explained in different texts of Nyaya philosophy. And I just realized I've got my hand in this mudra. That is the mudra of
teaching.
in debate, yes. It is about argument and debating. Okay. So floating in the surface of the ocean in the form of Veda Shastras and caught by the waves of 6 nigrahas. So six logical flaws. These are probably logical errors. The bad logicians suffer miserably. 73. A person well versed in the Vedas, Agamas, and Puranas, but ignorant of reality, is not distinct from a magician whose utterances resemble the caw-caw sound of a crow. Those who are worried about the suris and objects. What is that? Sources. Oh, the sources. Those who are worried about the sources and objects of knowledge take recourse to shastras, which they study day and night, but they are miles away from the goal of ultimate truth. Literary compositions are decorated by the figures of speech, syntactical arrangement of words, and by variety of meters. The fools who are worried cannot derive any solace from them. Reality is something else, and people suffer due to something else. I like that one. I want to embroider that one on a pillow. Reality is something else, and people suffer due to something else. The meaning of the scriptures is something else, and people define something else. A few proud people without traditional knowledge misinterpret the Vedas, which they do not rightly understand. They study the Vedas and discuss, but they do not realize the ultimate reality, just as a spoon does not know the taste of food. I like that. A few proud people without traditional... Okay, we did that. The head carries the flowers. The nose knows the scent. The people study the Vedas, but very few persons understand them. Not knowing the reality of the self, a fool is infatuated by the Shastras. When the goat stands in the shed, the shepherd seeks for it in the well in vain. The knowledge of the Shastras is not competent to destroy the infatuation accruing from worldly affairs. The wick of a lamp cannot remove darkness, which light alone can do. For the ignorant person, the study of Shastras is useless, as a mirror is useless for the blind. But for the wise, the same works as the means of true knowledge. Shastras are the source of knowledge, which one desires to attain, but that is not an easy affair. One may not achieve knowledge even in 1,000 divine years. Scriptures are many. Age is short. That's like art endures, life is short. Ars longus, vita brevis, or something like that. Obstacles come in battalion. One should pick up truth from falsehood as a goose picks up milk from water. Another mythological property of certain birds, that a goose can separate the milk from the water and drink the milk and leave the water. I don't believe it. 85. Having studied the Vedas and realized their essence, the wise man should leave all the Shastras just as one desiring corn leaves the husk. Just as one satiated with nectar has no use of food, no one who is in search of reality has anything to do with the Shastras. What? So, 86. Just as one satiated with nectar has no use of food, no one who is in search of reality has anything to do with the Shastras. I don't get that.
I think they're saying it's not in a book. It's in your life, but it's not in a book. It's not in the scripture. Exactly.
One cannot obtain release by reading the Vedas or the Shastras. Release comes from experience, not otherwise, O son of Vinita. A particular stage, ashrama, in life is not conducive to release. So no particular stage is the stage, conducive to release. Nor any system of philosophy, nor any ritual, nor the combined knowledge of the Shastras. The word of Guru alone can grant release. All knowledge is in vain. Among thousands of scriptures, the word of Guru alone is vivifying. The knowledge of the non-dual entity derived from the word of Guru can effect release. The practice of the ritual or the study of the crores of scriptures is quite in vain. Knowledge is twofold. One arising from the study of scriptures, the other arising from discrimination. Shabda Brahman is known from the scriptures, and Parabrahma, is known from discrimination. Some seek for the knowledge of non-dual Brahman, i.e. Brahman without Maya, and some for that of the dual, Brahman with Maya. But they do not realize reality devoid of Dvaita and Advaita, which means dualism and non-dualism. 93. 2 words, mine, mamma, and not mine, na mamma, signify bondage and release. By mine, the person is bound, and by not mine, he is released. That is the right action which does not put one into bondage. You can tell what's right, and it doesn't put you more into bondage. That is the right knowledge which brings him release. All other action is but a labor. All other knowledge is but an artisanship. So far as actions thrive, so far as desire subsists, so far as organs are active, there can be little talk of realizing the self. So far as one takes pride in body, so far as affection for worldly objects is there, so far there is persistence in efforts, so far as desire to do is there, so far as mind is not steady, so far as one does not meditate on scriptures, so far as Guru's blessing is not there, there can be little talk of realizing the self. Penance, vow, pilgrimage, muttering of mantras, sacrifice, worship, talk of the Vedas and Shastras are meaningful only when one knows reality. Therefore, by all efforts and in all conditions, focus your attention on Atman, O bird, if you desire release.
There's your answer.
A 100. Tortured by the threefold suffering, one should take shelter in the shade of the tree of moksha, which has blossoms of dharma and knowledge and fruits of heaven and release. Therefore, one should derive knowledge of reality from one's preceptor. Thus, one is easily released from the bondage of one's actions. Now, here, I shall tell you the last step by which you can attain the final goal. When the hour of great departure arrives, he should, without fear, cut off all attachments with the weapon of detachment. The calm man should leave the house, start on pilgrimage, and bathe in the holy waters. Then, having prepared a seat as prescribed, he should sit upon it with detachment. With a pure mind, he should meditate upon the pure three-syllabled Om, signifying Brahman. Without forgetting the Brahma Bija, one should conquer the breath and control the mind. And I think 3-syllable, it probably is talking about the Om as Aum, the 3-letter Om. So Om has only 1 syllable. 106. He should control the organs with the objects of senses, with intellect as his companion. The mind drawn away by the actions should be possessed for the good by the intellect. I am Brahman, the supreme shelter. I am Brahman, the highest stage. Having thus concluded, he should concentrate his personal self on the universal self, pronouncing Om, the one-syllabled Brahman, and remembering me. Whosoever leaves his body obtains the highest state. Where the hypocrites, devoid of knowledge and self-control, do not reach, the wise obtain that state. The wise, who are without ego and infatuation, who have left attachment and vices, who contemplate on soul, whose desires have turned back, who are free from the effects of joy and sorrow, attain that imperishable state. 111. He obtains release who bathes in the holy tirtha, its pilgrimage place, of mind, whose pond is knowledge, water is truth, and which is devoid of filth, of attachment and envy. Whosoever meditates on me with full devotion, without attachment to any worldly object, who has imbibed complete awareness and whose mind is all pleasure, with a desire to die, whosoever leaves his house and stays in a holy place where he breathes his last, can obtain release. Ayodhya, Mathura, Maya, Kashi, Kanchi, Avantika, Puri, and Dvaravati, these 7 places of pilgrimage can grant release. Thus I have told you, O Garuda, about the ways of release. Preaching the same with knowledge and control, one may obtain release. Those who have realized self can get release. Those who resort to the ritual can go to heaven. Those who commit sins go to hell. Others rotate on the wheel of birth and death. There is a footnote at this point. The Bhagavad Gita declares that after leaving the worn out or diseased body, the soul enters the new one immediately, as a man discarding worn-out clothes puts on new ones. But this is not true of each and every individual soul. Some souls wander in aerial bodies for indefinite time, some go to heaven, some to hell, staying in either place till their merits or sins are exhausted. Kshine punye martya lokam vishanti. Some enter the womb very soon to reap the fruits of their actions in human, animal, or other form on the globe of this earth. Now, at this point, Suta, one of the narrators of the Puranas, steps in and narrates, because that's what he does best. Thus, having received the answer of his queries, we're at 117. Thus, having received the answer of his queries from the mouth of the Lord, Garuda was delighted, and he bowed to the Lord of the world. My doubts have been cleared, O Lord, by your words. So saying, he took leave of Vishnu and went to the hermitage of Kashyapa. One may assume bodies sooner or later after death. There is no inconsistency in this approach. Garuda repeated what he had heard from the Lord. Maricha was also delighted on hearing the words of Lord Vishnu. O Brahmanas, I have removed your doubts and told you the most wonderful Purana, known as Garuda. Garuda got it from Vishnu. Bhrigu got it from Garuda. Vasishta from Bhrigu. Vamadeva from Vasishta. Parashara from Vamadeva. Vyasa from Parashara. And I from Vyasa. Thus I have told you the secret of Lord Vishnu. A man who hears the same or narrates the same is blessed with pleasure here as well as hereafter. Whosoever sorrows, having been told about them, who go to the city of Yama, whosoever hears about them gets release. After hearing about the results of actions described here, men may become averse to pleasures. The account is therefore meaningful for the listener. O ye that have controlled your organs, praise the Lord, from whom this voice has come out like a stream of water, by drinking or hearing even a drop or a handful of syllables, of which a man may attain union with Paramatman. Vyasa said, the sages were fully satisfied, having drunk the Vaishnavi nectar of words coming out of the mouth of Suta, replete with the essence of scriptures. They praised the Suta who knew the essence of the Shastras. Thus, having heard through the mouth of Suta the words of Lord Vishnu, allaying the doubts of Garuda, the sage Shaunaka was fully satisfied. The sages honored Suta with liberal praise, saying, "O Suta, you deserve a very high praise." Then they bade him farewell, the sacrifice being over. This holy Garuda Purana destroys sins committed by the listeners. This should be heard, therefore. Having heard the Purana, gift of bed, etc., should be given in charity, or else it would not be fruitful. First of all, this Purana should be worshipped. Then the reciter, with the fee in cash, clothes, ornament, and cows. To obtain merit, the reciter should be honored devoutly with gifts of gold, corn, earth, and other things. The man who hears it or narrates it gets rid of fierce tortures in hell, and shaking off his sins aside, enters heaven, where he enjoys the company of celestial nymphs.
There were some very interesting sections here. I especially liked when they were doing things. They did it a few times where they said, like in 43, split with the needle of God, soaked in the oil of passion, cooked in the fire of anger, eaten up by death. But they did this sort of listing a few times. They did it with the animals.
Yeah, that's quite a little stanza. Split with the needle of greed, soaked in the oil of passions, cooked in the fire of anger and envy, man is eaten up by death.
I love that section. And then there was...
What's not to love?
Verse 29. Look at that one.
Wealth is evanescent like a dream, youth is fading like a flower, age is fickle like a lightning. Knowing this, who can entertain fortitude?
Kind of a curious way of looking at things.
I keep thinking of Kabir and wondering, what his relation to this stuff is, if any. Kabir was a poet of the Bhakti period that claimed neither to be, not precisely Hindu or Muslim. It sort of allowed that God was something usually referred to as Rama, but Kabir really talked a lot about death too, as does this Purana, and he constantly is talking about how, to fully be alive and to fully do what you have to do in this body, you have to come to terms with your mortality. And I just kind of wonder if he had, how familiar he might have been with this Purana, or if there are even more, if you analyze the poetry in relation to the Purana, if you would find things.
I think you might.
I suspect you might.
One of the things that I noticed too was that 72, they give the 6 errors of logic, but they never say exactly what those are.
Yeah, well, that's one you look up in your book of numerical references that I, once upon a time, decades ago, started collecting.
And then that sort of diatribe against Shaivitism in 60 is where it starts, I think.
So, we are going to be moving into the third kanda next, and it is known as the Brahma kanda or the Moksha kanda, the liberation section.
So we'll see what that brings.
I still haven't quite decided, what these 3 kandas are. If in the traditional recensions you would find all 3, or if in fact you'd find one calling itself the Garuda Purana in one recension, and another calling itself the Garuda Purana in another recension.
I think it's more like that.
Yeah, I'd like to know more. Maybe it's in the introduction or something. In the first volume, probably.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. I hope the feeling is mutual. And we'll go on to the third kanda next time.